Hey everybody, this is Mr. Hague and welcome to another episode of MrHaguesClass.com. How y'all doing? We just started a brand new year. We're in the year 2023, so not sure what year you're at, but I am at the year 2023, and the only way I can tell the future, well, if you're listening this in the future, tell me what's happening. Anyway, so today we're going to talk about something really totally cool, and that is high school sports and the pros and cons, the good and the bad, everything involved with sports and whether it's really good or is it being taken too seriously. So specifically in this episode, I want to talk about sports-related injuries. And before I begin to embark upon that, let me say that there's few things in the world that bring joy to a family than to watch your child or your teenager in the field of play enjoying themselves in the spirit of competition. I mean, you're in the stands, you're watching them play, you're watching them do really good. Ultimately, you watch them receive trophies and medals. You attend their banquets, and you take countless numbers of photos and videos to capture the glory of the moment for an entire lifetime. It's pretty awesome. And of course, I've heard high school athletes tell me there are some annoyances in sports, and I can totally relate to this part. Things that make you not feel so valued, okay? A common complaint by a lot of athletes is favoritism. Yeah, when the coach gives other athletes more chances to play. Or, God forbid, politics, okay? So coaches giving favors to athletes because they're friends with their dads or friends with their uncles or friends with their relatives. Friends of friends. You know how that goes. And I hate to say it to you, but favoritism is not limited to just high school sports. It's in a lot of places. But something, I don't want to dwell on those things because I firmly believe that if you work hard and if you play hard and if you really have faith in yourself, you'll make your way into the playing arena, whether it's basketball, baseball, football, soccer, whatever you want to play. You work hard. Ultimately, someone's going to notice. The universe will say, play this dude, do that. Okay, so at any rate, I've been a victim of both. And there's, like I said, there's not much you can do about favoritism or politics. You just keep at it. Now comes the danger side of sports. Okay, we talked about the good, we talked about the annoyances, now the danger side. So, and I say this because, it's very traumatic for both the people watching and as well as the players playing. You're sitting in the stands, you're standing in the sidelines, you're watching your teammates play and, taking action. And then suddenly, or maybe you yourself taking the action, okay? And your family's watching you and your friends are watching you. And then suddenly you get injured. And it's not just any injury, but a serious injury. You lay in writhing pain, you get scared, and you're like, what's happening to me? Something really bad has just happened. You might have had a very harsh tackle in a football field, or you get hit by a pitch in baseball, or a soccer ball comes at your nose and breaks it, or hockey, someone checks you against the walls, and anything can happen. That's just the nature of sports. But if you get injured to the point where you're going to have to be placed in an ambulance and rushed to the hospital, and you're asking yourself, will I ever be the same? Well, unfortunately, my friends and my high school buddies, whoever you may be, that's the ugliness of sport. So what prompted me to talk about this? Well, there was a NFL game between the Buffalo Bills and the Cincinnati Bengals when the whole world witnessed a near fatal injury to Bills cornerback Damar Hamlin. For those of you who, again, are not familiar with the NFL or, as I mentioned before, listening to this in the future, on January 2nd, 2023, there was an NFL game between the Bills and the Bengals. Both teams headed to the playoffs. Both teams won their respective divisions. It was a big Monday night game Winner of that game would get home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Well, towards the end of the first quarter, about 6 minutes left, the Bengals were up 7-3, sorry. And a pass was thrown to Bengals wide receiver T. Higgins. T caught the ball and did what any ball carrier should do: fight for yardage. He carried the ball, gained about 13 yards before colliding into the chest of Bills cornerback Damar Hamlin. And up to that point, there was nothing unusual about the play. Hamlin got up, walked around, took a couple of steps, and before you know it, he collapsed, having suffered a sudden cardiac arrest. Now, this is serious. He laid on the ground. He wasn't breathing for a few seconds. Finally, the Bills medical unit came to the rescue. They performed CPR. They resuscitated him before placing him into an ambulance. He was taken to the hospital. He was given a breathing tubes to help him breathe. And he was in a coma. And he stayed that way for 48 hours before he was able to breathe on his own. Well, this is a few days later. And thankfully, he's been progressing ever since. He is out of ICU, but still the long road to recovery is something he has to face. But can you imagine if you're his family? Can you imagine the horror they went through? Can you imagine watching this on TV, or if you're at the game? Your brother, your sister, your son, your daughter, your family member, they get hurt so bad to the brink of paralysis or some long-term injury, maybe even death. It could happen, happened before. I mean, there is tragedy in sports, like, for instance, in 2001, Dale Earnhardt, race car driver, crashed, died during the race. And speaking of races, who knows how many horses died during the horse races? I mean, I think that sport should be banned completely. And then, of course, there's numerous accounts of boxers dying in the matches, and of course there was Owen Hart, a wrestler who tried to perform a stunt, fell down and died right there in the ring in front of all those people. Lane Frost, who was a bull rider, died after being trampled by a bull during a rodeo. And then, of course, there's Reggie Lewis, Boston Celtics, playing ball in the court, died during practice. And this is the nature of sports. I mean, this is a risk that you take, especially, in games like football and basketball, wrestling, boxing. You have to understand what you're getting yourself into. I announce football games for a local high school. And one of the announcements that I have to make, and probably the most important announcement, is asking the crowd to remain silent when a player goes down. There are reasons for that. Okay, one is to allow the medics and the injured player to communicate with each other. Sometimes the player is so injured that all he can do is whisper. Okay. Other times the medics have to listen to vital signs such as the heartbeat, breathing, fluid running through the veins, anything else. And it doesn't matter if the athlete is a member of the home team or the visiting team. If a player goes down, you remain silent. And you remain silent out of respect for the player, the medics, the recovery process, and yes, even the families of the injured player. The tragic endings and the hazards in sports are real. Family worry is justified. But, and a very big but, before you throw the stop sign up at your kids or your brother or your sister or yourself, before you throw the stop sign up and decide, now I'm not going to put myself at risk, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that, I don't want to get killed. Well, the injuries that I mentioned so far are very rare. I mean, if you have that attitude, you may as well not even drive. You got to drive the car, right? Otherwise, you're going to have a very tough life. You can't enjoy things unless you take your look at the surfers, look at the skateboarders, look at the roller skaters, look at the, even the dog walkers. I mean, there's risk into everything. But risk in sports is rare. And especially rare is any kind of injury that can result in death or complete alteration of life. So sports injuries are declining. And I'll tell you why they're declining. Mainly because the advances in sports medicine technology. There are better trained staff who are readily available. I mean, when I was playing football, an ambulance would only come when somebody gets hurt. When somebody is really down and out, then they'll call the ambulance. Nowadays, the ambulance is right there, ready to go. And of course, today's ball players have better equipment. There's better advanced helmets and shoulder pads and knee pads and batting helmets and tennis rackets. Everything is more advanced. And it prevents injuries. Well, let's look at some of the stats of this website called quotewizard.com, and I have it right here. And it shows that, ironically, the sports with the most injury for teenagers is actually basketball. Yeah, imagine that. Football is a close second. Actually, football is kind of a distant second. With basketball, you have about 400,000 injuries a year. Now, think about this, 400,000. How many ball players play basketball? 20 million? Okay, so you've got football. Okay, just as many people play football, and it's actually close to 200,000, so way less than basketball. And the injury that is the most concern, the most common, and sometimes the most serious, are concussions. Injuries will happen. Accidents will happen. You can fall down on the bathtub. So I personally believe and endorse sports participation. It is worth it. It does more good than harm. The cases I mentioned, again, are rare. Most games I see, the athletes, they take part of it, they walk away, they're not injured, they're ready for the next game. Many athletes never get injured their entire sports career. And, there are other good reasons to participate in sports. Studies have shown that students who participate in sports or other extracurricular activities ultimately perform better in school than those who don't. Physically active children are 15% more likely to attend college. And former student athletes tend to earn significantly higher incomes than those who didn't play. Student athletes, they earn about 40% higher in test scores. They're less likely to be obese. And teens who participate in sports are less likely to take illicit drugs or smoke. It promotes life skills like teamwork, overcoming fear, respect the opposition, improve social identity and self-worth. All those are important when you get jobs and join the real world or the commerce world, whatever it is that you do. My best students, my A students, are all athletes. So go ahead and join. We only hear about injuries in the worst case scenarios in sports, but the majority of the news they're good. Go on, put on those shoulder pads, put on the baseball helmet, put on those track shoes, or pick up that hockey stick. Go in the middle of the ice. Once I actually played football when I was in high school, and I actually broke my hand. And there was this huge big lump on my hand, and I didn't know it was broken, but I know it hurt like crazy. But what I did was I put padding over it so that coach wouldn't see it, and I kept playing the game. And that's something that I'm pretty proud of, that despite being injured, I kept on playing. And at any rate, of course, if you do get hurt, please seek medical attention. Don't listen to what I have to say. So at any rate, go out there, enjoy, have fun. This is Mr. Hagues from MrHaguesClass.com. Wishing you the best. Take care. Over and out.